This is good mood food. The funny thing about my mother is that she gets very obsessed with making certain types of recipes for like a month straight. So one month she made all of the cinnamon rolls on my site, and then she really got into artisan bread making and would call me almost every other day talking about the breads she was making and who she was giving them to. A few months go by, I go to visit her, and we started making artisan bread together. And we came up with this amazing no-knead seeded honey artisan bread. This recipe is very easy to throw together. It's great for beginner bread makers. So you just basically throw everything into a bowl, no kneading required. It's full of oats. We're using bread flour. Bread flour has a lot of protein. And then I'm adding a ton of seeds in there just to make it a little bit better for you. Let's get started and get into it. I'm gonna start off with some bread flour. I like to use bread flour in my baking recipes, my bread baking recipes specifically, because it is a high protein flour. So that means it's going to make your breads a little fluffier, a little chewier. It's just better, okay? So just buy the bread flour. It's also great for cinnamon rolls. Fun fact, my cinnamon roll recipe has been #1 on Google for like 4 years now. So if you haven't made them, you definitely should. I have a video on my YouTube channel that you can check out. You can weigh your flour if you want, or you can just fluff it, scoop it, level it off. Then we've got our oats, some kosher salt. The salt is really going to help activate that yeast, so do not skip out on the salt. And I always use diamond crystal kosher salt. It is my favorite, perfect for mixing into baking and cooking. Sunflower seeds. So nutritious. You could also use pumpkin seeds, but I really like the flavor of sunflower seeds when they're baked into the bread. We've got some flax seeds. Okay, so in this recipe, because it is a no-knead recipe, you wanna use an instant yeast. So that is like a rapid rise, quick rise, they're all sort of the same. 1 packet, add that in there. Because we're using an instant yeast, we do not need to activate it. The warm water, once it hits the yeast, it will activate the yeast, so don't worry about that. Give that a mix. Next up, wet ingredients. So we are starting off with some water and then 1 cup of milk. I'm using almond milk because I'm gonna keep this dairy-free because my cameraman is dairy-free and I want him to enjoy this bread. Hey. But also, you could use whatever milk you have on hand. It doesn't really matter if you're not dairy-free. Stick this in the microwave for about 1 to 1.5 minutes, and you want it to feel like it's warm bath water. That's when you know it's the perfect temperature. So that was about 90 seconds. That's exactly where I want it. Feels good. It's not too hot, so it's not gonna kill the yeast. Next, you are going to add in some honey. All right, so with honey, when you're measuring it, this is just a quick tip. You wanna spray the inside of your measuring cup with some nonstick cooking spray. And that will prevent the honey from sticking, and it'll just release very easily. So 1/3 cup, just naturally sweetening the bread. If you wanna make this bread vegan, you could add maple syrup instead. And we're just doing a tablespoon of olive oil. Give that a little mix. And then I'm just gonna pour it into the bowl. I'm telling you, this is the easiest, most delicious bread. Like I said, perfect for beginner bread makers. And once you make that, you can start making really fun variations on this. All right, so we're gonna line another large bowl with some olive oil. Gosh, this just doesn't wanna come out. Drizzle that. You're gonna dump that bread mixture into this bowl. Look how nice and seedy that is. I mean, I know it's good because I've made it before, but I can tell it's gonna be a good loaf. It is going to be pretty sticky, so don't worry about that if you're a little concerned. It's all good. And then you're just gonna roll this over, get it coated in that olive oil. Looks like that. Don't worry about shaping it. We're gonna cover it with some plastic wrap and then just cover it with a towel, and you're gonna stick it in the warmest place in your house and let it rise for 1 to 2 hours until it's doubled in size. Bread has been rising for about 2 hours, so now we're ready to take a peek at it. And it looks like it has doubled in size, and look at all of those nice seeds in there. It's glorious. So what you're gonna wanna do is take a big piece of parchment paper Now, technically you could have done this step before and just let your bread rise in the parchment paper, but today I'm just doing it after. Doesn't matter. And then you're gonna dust your surface with some flour. Bread flour or all-purpose works. And let that come out. Oh, it's so perfect already. All right, so now all you're gonna do is just take the bread and fold it over a few times. If you feel like it's too wet, you could add a little more flour. I'm just gonna add a dusting on top so it's easier for me to work with. And then get it into a nice little bowl. Looks like that, super cute. Give it a little jiggle. And then you're just gonna let it rise on the counter. You're gonna cover it with a towel, let it rise for about 45 more minutes. Once you've shaped your dough, I want you to get out a Dutch oven and you're going to put this in a hot oven for at least 30 to 45 minutes. The key to this bread and what makes it so good is that you place your bread in a hot Dutch oven. So just stick it in the cold oven, you can preheat it, let it sit there for 45 minutes. The bread has been rising for about 45 minutes again, and our Dutch oven has been getting nice and hot. So we're gonna pull that out. Oh, it's toasty. Now here's the deal. You have to be very, very careful when you are placing this into your Dutch oven because obviously it's very hot. So that's why I like to get an extra large piece of the parchment paper, and then you just slide it in there. And then what I'm gonna do is brush the top of the bread with a little bit of water, then sprinkle some seeds, and the water helps the seeds to stick to the bread. And then I like to score my bread. So I'm a fancy little oven mitt back on, grab that hot lid, put it on there, parchment paper will stick out, open your oven, and we're ready to bake. Bread has been baking for about 25 minutes, and all we're gonna do now is pull the lid off and to let the rest of the bread get nice and golden brown on top and finish baking. Just walking around. Okay, anyway, we're ready to take our bread out of the oven. Oh my goodness. This looks absolutely glorious. Okay, so I'm gonna immediately remove it from the pot, being careful when you do this, and then just transfer it to a wire rack. And you're gonna let the bread cool for at least 2 hours before you cut into it. This is just to maintain that really nice crumb and not to release any excess moisture. So just be patient. Bread has cooled. We're ready to cut into it. I'm so excited. All right. No, I want to cut it in the middle. I changed my mind. Sorry. That glorious crunch. Look at how pretty that is. So good. It's so nice and textured with those nuts, and it's still fluffy on the inside. What I love to do with this bread is toast slices up, but if I'm not gonna use it right away or eat the whole thing, I will slice it first and then just individually freeze the slices and pop them in the toaster whenever I want a slice of really good bread. And I'm gonna dress this up with a little butter, salted butter always, a little bit of salt, and I wanna cut it in half. It is so good. Watch out, sourdough. And this bread is coming for you. And it's very approachable, fabulous. Huge shout out to my mother for introducing me to no-knead artisan bread. And also, I feel like if you make this ahead of time, have it ready to go the next morning, it is bound to put you in a good mood.